So on the top of Daf Lamed Hey and Beis, we now have Gzeirat Shavuot Lechem Lechem. It says with regard to Matzah Lechem only, and with regard to Challah on the top line, V'hoy Machalchem Milechem Haaretz, Ma'ala Halon, just like with regard to Lechem for the Chi of Challah, it's Mishalchem. The Torah says Arisol Seichem, V'lo Mishal Maser. Again, we're going according to Rabbi Meir, who holds Masechet Mamon Gavoa. See your own it, you're not chayv v'chal. Afkan here to buy matzah, Mishalachem, V'lo Mishal Maser. And here we have a famous Taz. The Taz says that when you invite someone to your Seder table, you automatically give him ownership rights on the matzah that you put in front of his plate. Even though you can't make kinyonim on Shabbos, but okay, he figures out how to get around that. Lema Misayele, let's support Rav Asi. Isa Shalvaisa Sheni P'tur Min Achala, Divrei Rabbi Meir, V'chachavim Omrim, Chayeves B'chala. So it means that in the same way that Chala will have a machlokes between Chacham and Rabbi Meir, because it all depends upon whether Ma'aser Sheni is Mamon Gavoa or Mamon Bailin. That depends on Rabbi Meir and the Chacham. So too, with regard to Esrog and with regard to Matzah, this issue of Ma'aser Sheni b'Yushalayim will depend upon the machlokas between Rabbi Meir and the Chacham. So the Gemara says, Lema Misayelo. You use the word lema. Lema is a word. Maybe we can find a proof text. I mean, this is about as clear as you can. So the answer says, Ella midiv ha beha pligi beha nami pligi. Meaning that to the same extent, by Masechet B'Yushalayim, as far as Challah is a machlokas between Rabbi Meir and Chachamim, so too Esrog B'Yushalayim Masechet. And matzah of Masechet B'Yushalayim is a machlok between Rabbi Meir and Chachamim. Odilma, but I could argue otherwise. Shiny Isa, this machlokus is limited to the case of Challah, because in Challah, the Yom Rachman of the Torah says from Akra, Arisol Sechem, Trey Zimni, it says twice, Arisol Sechem. And the extra word, Arisol Sechem, is telling you that Ma'aser Sheni is potter. It's excluded from Challah because it's not yours. But perhaps with regard, to Esro and Matzah, where we don't have a redundant extra word, there maybe we would assume that Ma'aser Sheni, even according to Rabbi Meir, might be okay. Kamash Malan, that's the Chiddush of Rabbi Yas. The Mishnah says, Shal Truma Tmeya Psula, an esrog of Truma Tmeya is Psula. And the Gemara says, the Lespa Heter Achila. What do you do with Truma Tmeya? You have to burn it. You're not allowed to eat it. And everybody agrees, this was never a debate, that for Dal Minin, you need Heter Achila. Shal Truma Tahora, the Mishnah says, Lo Yito. We want to avoid it. Why? If it's Truma Tahora, then Yesh Ba Din Achila, and it's owned by the Kohen. He has private ownership. Why do you tell me to avoid an esrog of Truma Tahora? Pligi Ba Rabbi Ami Rav Asi Chad Amar Mipnei Shemachshira v'Chad Amar Mipnei Shemafsida. Now, in order to understand this Gemara, we have to quote a pasuk in Chumash. The pasuk says, Mishmeres Trumosai. Mishmeres means you have to guard Truma. Truma is considered holy. And you have to be careful with it. Which means make sure that it doesn't get destroyed, but rather it's eaten kimitzvaso. And number two, make sure it doesn't contract tumah. One man the Yomer says that it's a bad idea, a really bad idea, to take an esrog of truma and use it for the mitzvah of esrog. You know why? Rashi explained. Because every day, what do you do with the daled meaning after you finish using it? I don't know what you do, but Rashi says what you should do is you put it in water. And that seems to protect it. Once you put it in water, it becomes mukshal kabaltum. And anyone whose hands are tmeim, which is called shvios l'tuma, if he comes in contact with that esrog that's wet, or that's been wet, and hasn't been dried off yet, now the esrog will contract tumah. And we are commanded in Mishmeres Trumosa. And the other man, the other says, this is called mishmush. Have you ever heard of mishmush? Mishmush means when your hands touch something over and over again. In the case of an esrog, the outside peel, the layer of the esrog starts peeling off. And that's a violation of Mishmeres Trumosa. Please don't use an esrog of Truma Tahora. Do you guys promise me that? Please, I need everybody. If everybody could please promise me, okay, that you will not use an esrog shel truma tahor on Sukkot. Okay, good. We have now an absolute unanimous decision. We will avoid again. I've never seen an esrog shel truma in my life, but if you offer me one, I'm not going to take it because the Gemara, for one of two reasons, doesn't want me to take. My Beinai, is there enough community between these two opinions? Unbelievable. I can take an esrog, which is tevel, and I can declare harezu truma chutz mikli pasa. I don't want the outside peel to be cut out to just truma. So now I have no obligation of mishmeres trumosai vis-a-vis the outside peel of the esrog. And why would a person do such a thing? So that the Gemara would have enough community. Remind the owner of Nation Shira Ika. It doesn't matter whether or not the peel is part of Kedushas Esrog or not. The Esrog is an entity, and if it comes in contact with water, now if a sheretz falls on it, or Yadayim, Tmeos, it contracts tumah. That's a violation of Mishmeres Trumosa. But Remind the owner of Nation Mafsida, because of the Mishmush, so who cares if he messes up the outside peel, which doesn't have Kedushas Truma? The Mishnah says, "We've not al kshera." However, if he took an esrog shel truma tahora, then b'diavad he's yotze. He should have done it, but if he did it, he's yotze. L'mandi Yimanav Shachris works out beautifully. L'mandi Yimanav she'ein ba heter achila, harei yesh ba heter achila. The Kohen will eat this truma tahora. Again, I hope his wife knows how to make good jelly out of an esrog. But anyway, it's owned by the Kohen. So the Rishonim will ask, wait a minute. That's only for Kohen. I'm not a Kohen. How can I be Yotze? My mitzvah with an esrog of truma, which I'm enjoined from eating, and it doesn't have a heter achila. And the Rishonim say, I can give it to my grandson. He's a Kohen. Your grandson's a Kohen? You're not a Kohen. How's your grandson? The answer is, I married off my daughter to a Kohen. That was a good joke, right? Married off my daughter to a Kohen. Anybody here married off a daughter to a Kohen? Anybody? Nobody? Maybe. Okay. I married a Basli. But if you marry off your daughter to a Kohen, then your grandson is a Kohen. So Don is not here, John Bloomberg. He married off his daughter, Sahava. She's an MMY graduate. Anyway, she married Dove, who's a Kohen. They just had their fourth Kohen, I think. And the bris was 2 days ago. Great. I'm going to take this truma and I'm going to feed it to my grandson. But basically, the lumpus is conceptually that it has to be yesh bo din achil. It doesn't matter whether you can eat it or the Kohen can eat it. It's yesh bo heter achil. Shel demai, the Mishnah quotes a machlokas between Beit Shammai and Beis Hillel about an esrog shel demai, might tamayv Beis Hillel. Why does he say it's kosher? Where's the din achila? We have to be mafresh, maser from demai midrabanan, but we're not allowed to eat it. He can declare all my property is hefker. But do me a favor, if you're about to do that, can you invite me in before you make that declaration? Anyway, the Chazil, now, once he declares publicly that all his nechasim are heftim, then Shanami lachem karinim. Chazile means now he's allowed to eat d'mai. Why? Because according to Beis Hillel, d'mai is mutal aniyah. A poor person is allowed to eat d'mai. And here, every rich person could become theoretically poor. I mean, we know that to be true. But even if he wasn't mafkir in the chosim, it's called chazi. In the same way that we discussed about truma, I'm Yisrael, but I could give it to a kohen to eat it. Here too, I could give it to an ani to eat it. And the Gemara, Tosfos says, the Gemara gives a more extreme form, which I myself could become an ani. But it doesn't mean that dafka. It means that there are anim out there who can eat d'mai. So it's chazi la'achila. This night we have a Mishnah. In Masechet d'mai, machilin es aniyim d'mai. There's achsanyo d'mai. When the Jewish soldiers come around and they're very hungry and they're out there in the military, but they come in, so we're allowed to feed them d'mai. Beit Shammai, ani lo ochel d'mai, an ani is not allowed to eat d'mai according to Beit Shammai. And therefore, an esrog shel d'mai is possible according to Beit Shammai. This now we learned in the Mishnah, ein machilin ani d'mai, v'sachsanoim d'mai. And this is the opinion of Beit Shammai. V'yomer Rav Huna, Tana, we learned in a Bryce of Beit Shammai, Omrim, ein machilin aniyim v'sachsanoim d'mai. According to Beit Shammai, there's an absolute prohibition with regard to d'mai, no exceptions. Beis Hillel Omrim, Beis Hillel disagree. Machilin es aniyim d'mai v'sachsanoim d'mai. The Mishnah says, Shel Ma'aser Sheni b'Yerushalayim, and the Mishnah says that it's not a good idea to take Ma'aser Sheni in Yerushalayim. And here we have to add the following introduction: that just like we said in Truma, there's a mitzvah of Mishmeres Trumosa. So too, with regard to Ma'aser Sheni in Yerushalayim, there's a halacha of Mishmeres Ma'aser Sheni that we have to treat the Ma'aser Sheni as hegdesh with kedusha, and therefore Laman the Yomi Neshimach Shira, because of the fact that we're afraid that after the day's use, or even before he takes it on the first day, he's going to put it into what? Into water. Therefore, he's machshir l'kabel tuma, and that's a violation of Mishmeres. Laman the Yomi Neshimach Sida. And if it's because of Mishmush, Harei Mafsida, he's going to cause the spoilage of this Esrog of Ma'aser Sheni, which is a violation of Mishmeres. However, V'imnat al Ksheri, the Mishnah says, if he went ahead and he took an Esrog of Ma'aser Sheni in Yerushalayim, he was Yotz. Laman Diyom Mipnei She'ein Bo Heter Achila is then Divrei HaKol. What this means is that according to one Man Diyom, who excluded an esrog shel orl, because orl is also b'achila. Ma'aser Sheni b'Yerushalayim is not also b'achila. And whether you hold like Rabbi Meir or like the Chacham is irrelevant. So even if I hold like Rabbi Meir, that Ma'aser Sheni in Yerushalayim is mamon gavah, but I don't need the din mamon according to this madhyam. All I need is one condition, and that's eter achila, which I have. The Madi Omar, but according to the other Madi who requires not only Roy Lachila, Yeshbo Din Achila, but also Yeshbo Din Mamon, then Hamani, who is the author of this Mishnah? Rabbanan, he. Rabbi Meir would passel even b'di'eved the use of an esrog of Ma'aser Sheni in Yerushalayim, because Rabbi Meir maintains that Ma'aser Sheni Mamon Gavah. We're holding now that the requirement of esrog is lachem. It needs a din Mamon, and there's no din Mamon in Ma'aser Sheni Yerushalayim, according to Rabbi Meir. But according to Chacham, it worked out beautifully, because Mimanavshem. If you're talking about Yesh Bo Heter Achila, certainly it has Heter Achila in Yerushalayim. That's what we do with Ma'aser Sheni. And if you're talking about Yesh Bo Din Mamon, the Rabbanan hold Ma'aser Sheni Mamon Bailan. It's your private ownership. Also, chazis, right? Chazis are the ababuot, Rashi calls them. They are kind of bubbles that appear on the esrog. And the Mishnah says it depends. If it appears on most of the esrog, it's possible. I think I showed you yesterday a picture of it. It's very gross. You don't want to use such an esrog. Anyway, you can't use such an esrog because it's on row. If on the other hand, it's on mute, it's only on a small part of the esrog, the minority of the esrog, then it's kosher. That's right. Now, Makom, he has the Yotzi gives him a blessing. Lo shanu ela b'makom echad, but b'shnayim u'shloshim makomos kosher. Even if you would add together the various ababuot, of these chazazis of the esrog, you get a majority. It's not possible. Why? Because it's spread out. It's in 2 or 3 places. Ole Rava Adra, as we say in Yiddish, the exact opposite should be true. Vishnayim v'shloshim makomos are raised in the numar kimenumar u'pasul. We have a psul in mitzvahs called menumar. Menumar means it's speckled, like the speckles of a leopard. That's not considered something beautiful. I mean, if you're a leopard, I guess that's beautiful. But if you're not a leopard, then it's menumar, and it's possible. It's not hada. Now, how can you tell me that because there are boils here, there, up and bottom, and these chazazios are spread out, therefore the esrog is kosher? Eliyitmar, we have to reverse, or shall we say, rewrite the text of Rav Chisda. Aseifa Yitmar. Rav Chisda, after quoting Rav, made the following comment on the Seifa. The Seifa that Mishnah says, Al miyuto kosher, if the boils are only all told, if you add them together, a minority of the esrog, then the esrog is kosher. Amar Rav Chisda said divrei Rabbeinu Agadol Omro, B'makom Yebezro, Lo Shanu Elo B'makom Echad. If these boils are all together, one next to the other, one contiguous to the other, and they form a minority of the esrog, then it's kosher. Avol b'shnayim v'shloshim makomos, haveli kibenumar apostle. Even if the sum total of all these boils is the minority of the esrog, it's possible because it's spread out throughout the esrog, and that makes it kibenumar. And here I don't understand exactly why it says Shnayim or Shlosha Makomos. I mean, if Shnayim is possible because it's a menumar, then certainly 3. I don't know why he has to add O Shlosha. That I didn't catch. That requires study. And furthermore, there's a famous Chassam Sofer who says, Amish, a wild shita, that if these chazazios are very close to each other, that it's not called menumar. I mean, here you get the impression that if you can count them up, 2, 3, then it's possible. But Samsofer says that there's got to be some minimum separation between one chazis and one chazazis and the other in order to be considered kimenumar. Omar Rava v'al chotma. Where are these chazazios that passel the esrog? Says Rava, it's on the chotem of the esrog, on the nose of the esrog. And in such a case, no, I'm sorry. What I meant to say is the following. V'al chotem, however, if the chazazis is on the chotem of the esrog, then I feel the mashminam impossible. We don't have to count up majority versus minority, even if it's a small chazazis, but it's in a very critical place. It's on the chotem, then it's possible. Now, where is the chotem of an esrog? There are 4 different shittas in the Rishon. That's why it's very complicated to buy an esrog that has some sort of an ababuo, some sort of a blown up boil on it. You never know who we paskin on. It's so complicated. The Rashi basically has the most machmer sheet. Basically, the whole top of the esrog is called a chotem, from the point in which it starts inclining. That's called the chipua, up until the top. Like an esrog goes like this, and then it goes in. So that whole part that goes in is called the Chot. And the Rosh disagrees. The Rosh says no, that the part that's a Chotem is only on the top of the Esrog before the Pitum. And the Rambam, the most Mekil, the Rambam says that the Ababua that we talk about is on the Pitum itself. That's the nose of the Esrog. Very complicated. Nitla Pitmaso, if the Pitum was removed, it fell off, the Esrog is possible. Tona, Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar, Nitla Buch Nasa. Here also we have a major machlokas. Buch Nasa is what's called in Hebrew a base yad shel machteshes. And in the Esrog, Rashi holds that the Nitla Pitmaso is on the top of the Esrog, what's called a Rasha Esrog. But then he quotes one of his rabbis, one of his teachers, Rabbi Yitzchak HaLevi, who says on the contrary, that what is being said here in the Gemara is something about the bottom of the Esrog. It's the Zanav of the Esrog, which is taken off. We call that an okes. So this you'll see about 5 lines up before the end of the Amud in Rashi. And then Rabbi Yochanan has another interpretation. He thinks that there's a hole in the Esrog. You took off a chunk of the bottom of the Esrog, and as a result, you have a hole in the Esrog. Niklaf, if the Esrog was peeled, it's possible. Amarava, Hayes Roga, De Iglad, Bahina Succa, Shera. So I'll just try to see if we can, I know we're over time a little bit, so I just want to get to the 2 dots, which is the top line on Daf Lamed Vav. So Rav is talking about an esrog that after you peeled it, its color changes, and the word succa means red in Aramaic. Comes on Rav, and he says that if you peel off the outer skin of the esrog, but now it takes on a reddish color, shera. Now, I'm not sure exactly why. Apparently, the reddish color beautifies the esrog. I mean, it's not as beautiful as the original, but it still maintains a certain level of hadar. And that basic requirement of hadar is fulfilled. So the Gemara says, "Va'anan tanan niklaf pasel." The Mishnah doesn't qualify. It just makes a flat, absolute statement that if you take off the outer peel of the esrog, it's invalid. The Mishnah doesn't tell you what color appears after you take off the peel. Lokash, we turn to Lamed Vav, ha bekulo, ha b'miktsas. So Bli Neder, I think we'll have to, there's so many nuances here on ha bekulo, ha b'miktsasa. But just to mention Rashi, at least so we got away with Rashi. Rashi says, "B'kula kasha," very strange. If the entire esrog, the peel was removed from the entire esrog, then it's kasha. But if only part of it was peeled, then it's possible. And that's counterintuitive. So Rashi adds menuma. Rashi says, "B'miktsasa," if you only peeled part of it, it's menuma. It's like speckle. You get all yellow, part of it's red, and that's a psul of menuna. Okay, then Rabbi say, so this is where we'll stop for today, and the mission tomorrow will start on Lamed Vav Amud. Okay then? Okay, great. Wishing you a great day.